it's helpful to examine the history of PHP. Version 1 of PHP was written by Rasmus Lerdorf in 1994. It was a set of CGI binaries in the C programming language that he wrote to replace a set of Perl scripts that he'd been using to maintain his personal homepage. Version 2 was a more formalized version that he put out in 1995. This version improved the original version and also combined it with code that would interpret data submitted by web forms. This was the first public release of PHP. At the beginning, PHP is an abbreviation for Personal Homepage Tools, as in PHP Tools. And that's because that was its primary purpose, was helping him maintain his personal homepage. But in version 3, PHP changed dramatically. Two other developers got involved, Zeev Saraski and Andy Gutmans. These two developers rewrote major parts of PHP between 1997 and 1998, and they also renamed it PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. Now you can see that in those three words we still have the initials P, H, and P. But the first word of the acronym is the acronym itself. This is called a recursive acronym. So if you ask what the first PHP in that stands for, it is PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. This is what passes for programmer humor, so get used to it. PHP version 3 is the first version that resembles the PHP that we still use today. And it was this version that was responsible for making PHP incredibly popular. In version 4, the PHP code changed significantly once again. Saraski and Gutmans had formed a new company called Zend, and Zend rewrote the core of PHP. This was a big update that made PHP very full-featured, partly in response to the fact that it had become so popular. Their goal was to make the code more modular and to allow it to work better with other people's code. They released it in May of 2000, and the core code is referred to as the Zend engine. Finally, we have version 5 of PHP, which came out in July of 2004, which is based on another new and improved version of the Zend engine. PHP 5 includes a lot of new features, such as better performance, improved object-oriented programming, and some better database connectivity. Within each of those 5 major versions, there are also many minor versions. At the moment, PHP 5.4 is the most current version. Most everything that we will discuss in this course will work with all versions of PHP 4 and PHP 5, even future versions that haven't been released yet. And that's because we're going to be focusing on the essentials of PHP, and those don't change very often. Most of what's being changed are either the internal improvements that make PHP work faster or more efficiently, or high-end improvements that are used by advanced users. The essentials stay pretty much the same, and they have stayed pretty much the same since version 3. Before we get started by installing PHP, let's examine why you should use PHP. And we'll do that in the next movie. Examine why you would want to use PHP over other web technologies. There are many reasons to use PHP. The first is obviously that you've discovered the limits of HTML, and now you need something more. PHP is also open source and free software. Open source means that the source code is available for everyone to study, to use, or to modify. Any developer can create an improvement to the way PHP works and submit it for consideration. And it's free software, which means that it's free to download and it's free to use. There's nothing to purchase, no license fees, no royalty fees. And I'm sure I don't have to tell you why free is a good feature. PHP is also cross-platform to develop, to deploy, and to use. That means we can put PHP on a Windows server, on a Mac server, or on a Linux server and run the same PHP code with no problems or any differences. And if you remember, we're going to send the results of our PHP code to the user's browser's HTML, so it doesn't matter what computer type they're using. They don't need to have any kind of plugin or anything installed in their browser to be able to view our website. By learning the PHP language, you're not tying yourself to a specific piece of hardware or an operating system or a vendor. PHP is also powerful, robust, and scalable. Now this quality may not affect you so much when you're developing. When you finally deploy your finished website, you're going to want to know that it's going to be able to handle the amount of traffic that it gets, that it's not going to fail on you, and it's going to be able to grow with you as your traffic grows. The important point here is that just because it's open source and free doesn't mean that it's inferior and that it's not as powerful and stable as technologies that you pay for. Big sites like Facebook, Yahoo, and Wikipedia use PHP. PHP is web development specific. It was written from the very beginning with web development in mind. If you'll remember, version 1 was written to help someone maintain their personal website. So the functions in PHP are going to be designed for web usage. And you don't have to learn a much larger, more comprehensive language that's full of lots of features that you won't need during web development. PHP is also fully object-oriented since version 5, documentation in many languages. If you go to php.net, large, active developer community. Over 20 million websites use PHP, 10 of all programming and scripting languages. and can be able to work with those tools more efficiently and even customize them for your specific needs. Now that we're comfortable with the choice to choose PHP for our website, let's get an overview of how we get PHP installed